My name is Dwight Baranek. I'm from Bradenton, Florida. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners, and welcome to the new County Administrator as well. I'm here to brief you on the status of the permit application that the county placed with the Army Corps of Engineers under Clean Water Act 404 for Ridge Road extension. And I'm pleased to say that we finally have passed a milestone that was very important, and that being that the Corps of Engineers has identified what they call a preliminary, least environmentally damaging practicable alternative, or LEDPA. What this allows the county to do now is to focus all of its attention and energy henceforth on one project, as opposed to 17 alternatives that had been presented or asked for by the Corps of Engineers over the last several years. I want to really give a handout to all the county commissioners that have been involved with this, and the county staff, county administrator as well, because your diligence and persistence has really paid off from the standpoint of getting the importance of this project elevated, not only within the Corps of Engineers ranks, but also at the national level. You made 2 visits to Washington, D.C., the last one being just a couple of months ago, and that has paid off from the standpoint of getting visibility not only with the Corps of Engineers leadership, but also with the White House. And this, what this does is it sends to the Corps of Engineers and other federal agencies the importance of this, not only to the county, but also in the national interest from the standpoint of public safety. So now we're at a particular milestone whereby we have time, other things left to do, and it's going to take a little bit more time, but it's all going to be focused on the Ridge Road extension for what's called Modified Alternative 7, which was the county's preferred alternative submitted to the Corps of Engineers in 2015. The events that would follow from this, all focused on that one route, would be involved with preparing additional information from the standpoint of plans, particularly via preliminary construction plans for this route that would be then used by the Corps of Engineers and other agencies from the standpoint identifying any adverse impacts for wetlands, adverse impacts for endangered species, but all specified down to much more scientific levels than they had been in the past. This will involve consultation between the Corps of Engineers and Environmental Protection Agency, between the Corps of Engineers and U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service under Section 7, and also it will involve consultation between the county and the Southwest Florida Water Management District, as well as the county and the Florida Turnpike Enterprise. So there's a lot of different activities that are left to be done, but what we were able to do here recently, and I'm sorry that we weren't able to put it into your package, but within the last week or so, we're able to map out in what was called a Microsoft project schedule all the activities that will be necessary for the county to perform, for the Corps of Engineers to perform, for SwiftMud to perform, and for others to perform. And so now the county has a very clear roadmap with regard, and here it is up here, with regard to all the various activities that will be required. It wasn't until last week that we really had a good identification with regard to how much longer it would take between now getting this preliminary LEDPA and getting a permit decision from the Corps of Engineers with all these activities that are laid out here. Our best judgment is, with all the various players, it'll be about 14 months, but could be less. Much of this is dependent upon the extent it takes with regard to getting a recertified 401 permit from SwiftMud, also for the consultation with U.S. Fish and Wildlife on Section 7. And each of these activities has to play together from the standpoint of going through this critical path method in order to be able to get to that final result. But it's clear to us right now that everybody is focused on the Ridge Road Extension Modified Alternative 7, which the county offered as a way to avoid wetlands impacts. The county has made decisions with regard to the approach that they want to make on mitigation, using a mitigation bank, which is also favorable for them. And so I believe that the county is well positioned right now in order to move forward and achieve we hope, a favorable permit decision from the Corps of Engineers. With that, I open up to your questions and comments.
Thank you. Dwight, so you talked about the 401 from SwiftMud.
Yes, sir.
Have we begun that process?
Pardon me?
Have we begun that process?
Yeah, you have. You went through that with the earlier submission, and what's necessary with SwiftMud now is that since you changed the preferred alternative to modified 7, which has some bridging in it, that information has to go back to SwiftMud, and that they have to recertify your 401 water quality permit.
So, Ms. Baker, we're about 60% done with that process? Is that what we talked about yesterday afternoon?
No, the 60% related to something else. So with the Water Management District, we have a permit. Now we've got to go through a permit modification.
The mod.
Right, and so we have not submitted the permit modification pending the determination by the Corps of the lead put. Now that we have that, we can resubmit the permit modification. The 60% is on the bridge design. We're not finished with the bridge design.
That's right, okay.
And then more
Which
data.
which triggers the mod?
Correct, but, you know, we can go back now. I think our engineer of record's going to have to do some modification to the construction plans in order to get the SwiftMud modified permit. So they're tied together.
Okay, and give me a timeline for that.
It's in there. I
I
can't read it
can't
from
see
here.
At that duration.
I'm not the $10,000 man. I don't have those eyes
Right, I'm
that
going
he
to
has.
pull it up on my computer so
Yeah,
I can look at it.
I think the duration is about 250 days, if I remember right, for a SwiftMud. And that may be shorter depending upon how the coordination takes place with them. But the thing that has to happen first is that more data has to be collected consistent with this preferred, LEDPA, especially having to do with the wetlands delineation. And that has to go to SwiftMud and to the Corps of Engineers at the same time.
I got you. So what I will ask, and I had this brief conversation with Mr. Biles and Ms. Baker yesterday, is that let's push forward quickly with this with SwiftMud, because you're saying possibly 200-something days, I think is what you said. I don't see it taking that long. Enough of us have some relationships with, strong relationships with SwiftMud. I think we can have those conversations on our own if we need to, too. So just keep us up to date, keep me up to date, whatever.
And to be clear, sir, the project plan, I'm looking at the details now in a scale that I can read, blown away up, does not anticipate that SwiftMud's going to need it for 230 days. It builds in the process of the condition precedent of finishing the plans, but they've actually got 20 days assigned to the initial SwiftMud review, then 2 days to respond to the RAI. So it's a back and forth, but they're not assigning 230 days to SwiftMud's portion of it. It's the whole permit mod requires that plan stuff to be done first.
So obviously, we just want to make sure that we all understand that, SwiftMud's different than the Corps, and I feel that we can progress quicker with SwiftMud than we have in the past with the Corps. So, Commissioner Mariano.
Mr. Chairman, I think you're dead on the money. That's just where I was going to try to go to. Just what can we do to speed this process up every step of the way? Administrator Biles, hopefully you can kind of help this thing get pushed all the way through. I think maybe a letter from the board, if we think it's appropriate, take your suggestion on that.
Yeah, we'll go ahead
From the
and
governor
draw
to
one
say,
up.
let's, we appreciate all your help you've given us so far. We've taken this great step, and now we're going to hit a government agency. We want to help you, help us push the thing, keep on rolling.
Yes.
And I think this, this project flow chart here, that will help the county immeasurably as time goes on. It was prepared by your engineer of record for this, NP5, with their subconsultants. And so now we can track each individual activity much more closely than we could before when we had 17 separate projects just kind of floating around. And so I'm confident that now we have a much better handle on what's necessary in order to be able to get a permit decision from the Corps of Engineers. Another long pole in the tent I'd like to mention, the county has taken upon itself to reorder, let's say, the biological assessment that it submitted earlier at the request of the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. They have a 145-day statutory review period that they can take, but perhaps with working with the Corps and the county having a reordered submission for their biological assessment, perhaps we can shorten that as well. But so this is a more realistic schedule, but certainly, I believe that we should be able to condense it somewhat if everybody works together on it. Yes, sir.
So, in your estimation, if everything goes as planned, we could break ground in 14 months?
Yeah, you could have a permit decision by then, and you could probably do some front-end planning with regard to getting your contracts ready. That would be a great milestone.
So we possibly could break ground in 14 months?
I don't know your internal processes
That's
on
what the
that, sir.
schedule shows, yes,
But
sir.
we're shooting for a permit decision in 14 months or less.
I know what permits mean, and I know what
The
moving
major
dirt
things
means.
there, as you know, is getting past this alternative analysis. And I really got to hand it to county for persevering for all those years.
It wasn't too
Be able to
long.
get there.
Mr. Chair?
So, Commissioner Starkey, yes.
Should we anticipate an appeal by certain groups, and would that delay us?
I'm sorry, ma'am?
Is there an ability of certain groups out there to appeal this and
I'm gonna
delay?
defer the answer to
con-
that to Mr.
construction.
Steinsnyder.
I mean, it's permit decision, so yes, there is the potential that you will get challenged.
And so we have to, can we start construction while there's a challenge, or do we have to wait?
That all depends on how the challenge is filed.
Okay. Well, I won't ask any more questions.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Mariano, and then, go ahead.
Thank you. Dwight, you and Dawson have done a phenomenal job. You told us going to take some steps. You've taken the steps every way. Especially this last trip up there, the meetings you had set up were phenomenal. Took advantage of Trump's resolution to drive this forward, so great job with that. I would like us to make sure that we kind of look at the Turnpike Authority. They were holding money for years for us. Every
Right.
year they kind of renew and they kick it back out. They said, when you get ready, we'd be ready. So I think we need to reach out to the Turnpike Authority, get them ready, get
Right.
them rolling. And if there's any way that we can actually take a look at this, and maybe this was taken with you or whatever, but we need to try to get some federal funds to fund the second part of it as well, rather than just having it thrown on us. Now's probably a good time to start looking to make that ask for next year.
Good, and we have our new firm, so we can assist with that. Right.
Thank you.
So if I'm not correct, the ask is for, the 404 ask is really not I don't want to call, it's really not the ask. You're asking us to possibly set that money aside for 14 months, but we're still on a 30-day contract, if I'm not correct, renewal after every 30 days.
That's correct.
Okay, just make sure we're on the same page. I'll entertain a motion.
Move for approval.
Second.
A motion is second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, all opposed, same sign. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Dwight.